First of all, a big thank you to Simon over at Watch the Time for selling me this watch. And he sold me it at a very reasonable price. In fact, it's only 7 months old, and it's hardly had any wear. Now, when Simon reviewed this watch, he described it as a love child between a Seiko, a Grand Seiko and a Rolex. But I would say it's a love child of a Grand Seiko, a vintage Rolex and a Tudor Black Bay. I certainly don't think it's a direct homage to anything, although a little generic. But I did read it got inspiration from the vintage Rolex 6538. And welcome to my unpaid and unsponsored review of the Borealis Bull Shark. My relationship started with Borealis, which is a Portuguese microbrand by the way, about 6 years ago. And although I owned a few, I haven't had one for quite a while. Most of the watches in their range were quite large, and my taste changed, so I ended up selling anything over a 40mm. What I do remember is the quality is outstanding, and recollect my Borealis Cascais had the best lume of any watch I've ever owned. Now this is the version 2 38mm Bull Shark, the original being 42. The supposed Rolex that gave the inspiration to this watch was 37mm by the way. One thing that hasn't changed much is the case that it comes in. It's a very nice soft leatherette that can house just one watch, and it includes a 1-year warranty card. Now I have to say I think 1 year is a little bit mean, but that said, the movement inside this is very reliable, so it's very unlikely you're going to have to claim on it anyway. As usual, I'll start with the dimensions, because if they don't suit you, it's not worth watching the rest of the video really, is it? Now the case is 38mm, the lug width is 20mm, the lug to lug is 47mm, although it does have a strange end length that makes it a tad longer. Now the depth is 12.8mm, which includes a double dome sapphire crystal with AR coating, and once adjusted to fit my 17cm wrist, it weighs in at 148 grams. In my opinion, the watch weighs a little bit larger, probably more like a 39. Inside is the automatic Miyota 9039, which is the dateless version of the 9015, so there isn't a ghost position. It's a very reliable high beat movement that ticks away at 28,800 beats per hour. It hacks and it hand winds, and it's got good positional variance, which basically means if it's regulated correctly it will be very accurate. The power reserve is around about 42 hours. Now some people do mention a noisy unidirectional rotor, but it's something I'd never noticed when it's on the wrist. Let's see what the time grapher thinks of it. And there we are. When I received this watch it was actually running about 25 seconds fast, but I've had the back off and regulated it, and all looks good. The unprotected and signed crown is just under 7mm, and it screws down to aid the watch's excellent claim water resistance of 300 metres. That basically means you can dive down far enough to withstand anything that won't make your head explode. The knurling is excellent, as is the engagement when being screwed down. The case is almost solely brushed to a high standard, with the only polishing being on the chamfers between the tops and the sides. The tops of the lugs are vertically brushed, as are the sides. Now I normally prefer horizontal brushing on the sides, but because this is done so well, I'm happy to live with it. Now the case is a little bit flat, but in its favour it does have drilled lugs for easy strap changes. Now here's a picture of it on the back of my wrist. Borealis have always made nice case backs, and this is no different. It's a deeply oil pressed picture of a mermaid, with some basic information engraved around the outside. Not sure why it's a mermaid, as I would have thought a shark would have been more appropriate. Needless to say, it screws down to aid its already mentioned phenomenal water resistance. The dial is uncomplicated, as a tall diver should be. That said, this frosted finish is particularly nice and gives the watch a bit of a dressy feel, although that frosted finish can only be seen under certain lights. There's a silver rehaut that leads into a minute track. Under the 12 o'clock it simply reads Borealis, and above the 6 o'clock it reads automatic, with the water resistance printed below that. On the dated version of this, the date window sits at 6 o'clock. Now this has got the Mercedes hands, although I believe it's also available with snowflake hands. I have to be honest, I'm not the greatest lover of either, but that's just personal I suppose. Now the hands and the bold round chrome surrounded indices are filled with gallons of BGW9, and this thing glows all night. For the first time on my channel I've done a lume degradation comparison, and this with the Phoebus narwhal, which is on the right of the picture, another lume monster. This is it speeded up after 20 minutes. Now as good as it is, I don't think it knocks the narwhal off the throne. Let's see what you think. The lume bezel is okay, but not as good as the previous bezels I've had on other Borealis watches. There isn't any backplay or bounce, but the resistance is a little bit lighter than I normally like, and I think it lines up very slightly to the left. The grip however is excellent, and if you actually wanted to use it as a dive watch, which I suspect nobody will, it will be easy enough to adjust. Anyway, let's have a little listen. The bracelet is an oyster style, although I do find oyster style bracelets just a little bit boring, although this one is very comfortable. Now the tops are nicely brushed, although the sides are polished. The solid end links fit well to the case, but there are no quick release spring bars. But don't forget though, like I said earlier, it does have drilled lugs. It tapers down from 20mm to 18mm. An adjustment is made using these rather well engineered chunky screws. The elephant in the room is the unusual end link. Now although it's technically female, it doesn't drop straight down, which makes the lug to lug, as I mentioned earlier, a little bit long. Now my wrist is 6 3/4 inches and I can get a decent fit. Any smaller and I think you struggle. I would like to have seen an on the fly clasp, but I suppose this one is a good second option. It's a very well built mill clasp and it's got double pushers and a flip lock. It's signed and it offers no less than 6 micro adjustments, so getting a good fit, well, it's a piece of cake. So what will one of these cost you? Well, it's not exactly AliExpress money, but for a well-made microband it isn't bad either. In the King's coinage, a new one of these ordered direct is going to cost you £420, when Donald Trump money that's $499, although there is presently a 15% discount offer. But unless you know a way to avoid duty, you can add 20% to that if you live in the UK. I can't say that makes the watch brilliant value, but I don't think it's bad. Of course, if you can pick one of these up used, that's normally where the best value lies. So what do I think of the 38mm Borealis Bull Shark? Well, I would have liked an on-the-fly clasp, a different end link, and if I'm honest, I would have liked a different handset. But apart from that, all is good. It's a very well put together tool diver with a dressy feel. The finishing is very good, the movement an excellent choice, the frosted textured dial and lume is exceptional, and from a personal perspective I like the dimensions. So would I recommend it? Yes, I think I would. However, if I were to compare it with one of my newly acquired watches of similar spec, that's the Phoebus Delphinus, I think I'd probably go for the Phoebus, and I'd save a few quid along the way. I'm sure you're all going to be gutted, but that brings me to the end of this review. If you've enjoyed it, please click on the like button. Subscribe, I'm sending the lads round. Leave your comments below and enjoy the rest of your day.